Welcome to the Fundraising Partnership podcast with me, Ross Wigan, where we talk about all things to do with lottery, regular giving, and face-to-face fundraising. This is episode number 5, where we talk about fundraising specifically for hospitals. You catch me here today at the Bexley wing of the St James's Hospital in Leeds, where we're representing the Leeds Hospitals charity. Later on in the episode, we'll have an interview with our Chief Executive Officer, Nick Berg, who is probably the most passionate and I'd suggest one of the most knowledgeable people in the industry around fundraising for hospitals with face-to-face activity. As you can hear in the background, we have a pianist playing for the patients and the families who are here in the Bexley wing. Let's have a listen before we dive straight in. Such a lovely, welcoming, warm environment here in the Bexley Wing, and I'm stood in the Atrium Gallery. It's a permanent exhibition space for contemporary artwork and craft displays. Some beautiful pieces along the wall here. All of them for sale, with a substantial portion of the donations going to the Leeds Hospital charity. A lovely touch here. It really is a fantastic exhibition. We've got 2 of our face-to-face fundraisers who are in the distance. I'll have a chat with those 2 later on. In fact, it looks like they're just signing somebody up as we speak to their weekly lottery for the Leeds Hospitals charity. It's a new charity partner for us. We've started within the last couple of days, but I can tell you the amount of work that has gone in to prepping and getting our agency and our fundraisers ready to be able to work for this amazing partner. It was a fair feat. It's something that we're really proud to do here at the Fundraising Partnership. We do our own research, looking into the charity, looking into their impact reports about all of the amazing work that they do. We have found in the past that when we do our own research around these hospital charities that we're representing, when we dig into their websites, when we search for their annual reports to find out about the impact that the money that the charity raises has on the hospital itself, occasionally we're actually finding out information that the fundraisers directly employed by the charity weren't aware of themselves. So we're out there not only signing up long-term quality donors to either lottery or regular giving for these hospital charities, but we're also spreading the word. Spreading the word about the impact that your hospital charity can have on the patients, on the care, and on the hospital. Earlier on, I spoke with our Chief Executive Officer, Nick Berg, about his thoughts around how he can impact and have a positive influence on the way that hospitals fundraise when it comes to regular giving, lotteries, and face-to-face. Welcome to the podcast, Nick.
Hello, Ross.
Wow, I've been saving you for a special subject, and here we are, but in true Cilla Black style, what's your name and where'd you come from?
So my name is Nick Berg, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer for the Fundraising Partnership. Before I did that, I worked as a trainer and a fundraiser myself in another company, working on behalf of lots of charities. And I started doing that in 2017. And for the sort of previous 30 odd years before that, I worked in a different industry. I worked in universities. It's specifically in student unions, which you'll either know about or you won't. And I was a chief executive officer in that and other various roles. I was also an interim CEO, did management consulting in that field as well. And then I got to the age of 50, and for various reasons, I wanted to change career and I wanted to work on behalf of charities. And eventually I sort of stumbled into, like a lot of people, I stumbled into face-to-face fundraising without necessarily intending to do it. And I've been in it ever since.
And you love it, don't you?
Yeah, I'm very passionate about face-to-face fundraising, the good that it does when it's done the right way, and very passionate about that and about excellence, and about the company that we've created.
I think another thing that I've found since working with you that you're very passionate about, and this is what I've been saving you for the podcast. I don't think there's probably a better subject that I could bring you in on. Something that, you know, you've taught me a heck of a lot since I've been here is around fundraising for hospital charities. Do you want to tell me a bit more about what you think the benefits are for hospitals in this area?
Yeah, so I think the why I love working in hospitals and love doing it, um, and wanted it to be a big part of what we did when we set the company up, was based a lot on my underlying sort of views and then my actual experience of doing it. And I'm like many people in the UK, where we often joke about how the NHS is like the unofficial religion of British people. And I'm not a religious person at all, but I have that feeling about the NHS. I feel it's one of the country's great achievements. It brings me immense pride, and every time I'm in a hospital, I have this overwhelming emotional feeling all the way through it and afterwards. A really feeling very humble and grateful to all the people that work in hospitals, obviously the doctors and the nurses, and how caring and sensitive they are, but also the reception staff, the porters, everything else. I know that it's not perfect and so on, but it's this emotional experience I feel, and I think lots of other people feel, like every time you use a hospital, it's an emotional experience because of what's happening, but also it reminds you of how we feel about hospitals. And Ross, you spoke, I think, in another context about Leeds Hospital Charity. It's the hospital that many of your family have been in and out of, and that is so typical for so many of us, is that many of our most landmarks in our life journeys are connected deeply to hospitals and to our local hospitals. So there's a connection there that's enormous. I think the other thing is that it's often one of the few things in any given area, geographic area, that we all share, that unites us. It is one of those things, it's the football club, or the rugby club, or whatever it might be. It might be a whole series of things, but hospitals are really big in this, the thing that brings everybody together. So I think they're real community symbols as well. And having worked in hospitals, I've seen the response from supporters, and the way we do it, which we'll talk about, is very, very cause-led. Is what I find is lots of people want to support their local hospital. They want to be part of it. They want to belong to it. So I have a passion about giving people the chance to be part of their local hospital, to give to it, to help make it better. And I actually think it's a right that we should all have the opportunity to support the local hospitals that mean so much to us, and to feel even more part of it. And I also love the messaging side of it. The hospital charities do such great work, and many of us who work in face-to-face fundraising enjoy talking with people, but we also enjoy great stories. They give us materials to work on. And one of the things that's wonderful about working in hospitals is hospital charities do so much great work. Almost nobody knows about it, or even that they exist. So you get a chance to share that. And they've got compelling stories that show a charity really making a difference for people. And that's what makes it a very enjoyable, if you like, cause to promote to the public, and to be able to, say, to share it with people. They go, wow, that's amazing. I didn't realize they paid for that. It's really, really enjoyable. And I also believe that hospital charities are a great opportunity for fundraisers, and they deserve the best fundraisers. They absolutely deserve the best fundraisers. It's about respect. It's about realizing it's such a privilege to be able to do this. It's the best job for a face-to-face fundraiser, and it's a privilege to have a chance to do it. And it should be thought of like that by every fundraiser. And that drives our commitment to standards, specialization, the adaptation we put about it. So we're really passionate about delivering tremendous quality and tremendous income for hospitals, because that's the other part, is the enormous opportunity to generate a really good income for hospital charities, which they will do so much good with. So I'm really passionate about, I want every hospital charity to have the chance to have the income stream that maybe hospices and children's hospices have had, to be able to do even more good stuff. And I'm really passionate about giving every hospital charity we can the chance to have that income to do that good.
Nick, so we've been setting up for the Leeds Hospital charity most recently. I know that you've worked in several other hospitals, both as a face-to-face fundraiser yourself and as a manager setting up and managing these campaigns. Do you want to just tell me a little bit about how you think we should approach, and how the fundraising partnership approach speaking about the hospitals that we're representing?
My general feeling about this is we're like a walking, talking impact report.
Yeah.
Most hospital charities have got fantastic annual reports and impact reports and doing a lot of good, but all too often they're sitting in drawers or email inboxes, and they're great bits of communication, and the public are really inspired by the range of examples and the impact that they have and the process by which they're done. And so one of my sort of starting points is essentially what we're going to do is take your impact report and take it out to the public. And all the material is going to be geared around that, because the best way to explain to people what does this hospital charity that you didn't even know existed a moment ago does is actually the examples of what it's already done. And those are stories and impacts, and they tell the story of how the hospital charities fundraising supports and complements the NHS funding without in any way being some kind of substitute for proper NHS funding, or any kind of thing that could be used to justify not funding our NHS properly. So the basic starting point is it's the examples, it's the impacts. And then when you talk to the public, you're talking about real things. You're not selling a concept, you're selling reality, but you're also not selling it, you're sharing it. So that's another part of the passion. And that's what I've been doing a lot around the Leeds Hospital charity, is going through their impact reports, their existing materials, the things that they've done, and turning those into stories for our fundraisers so they can use them when they have conversations with the public.
As we've talked about what makes hospitals so special, but I think, from a patient's point of view, from a family's point of view, from a community, we know why those hospitals are so special. But from a fundraising point of view, we've seen that the appetite from the patients, families, and the community who are using those services, there is a huge appetite for those people to support these hospital charities. So when recruitment's been done right, what sort of recruitment volume and what sort of results have you seen whilst you've been in the hospital sector?
Yeah, this is another aspect of my passion for this, and why I really would like every hospital charity to think about face-to-face recruitment for individual giving programs. There is a real appetite from supporters to do it, which means the volumes you can deliver are very impressive. And that means you can build up a really big income stream. If you invest in it, you will get an annual income, which could easily grow to £1 million a year or more, year after year after year. And you can do it in a sustainable way. And think what you could do with that money, right? And not only that, but you're creating a supporter base that you can leverage for additional donations, appeals, for legacies, all kinds of things. Who wouldn't want a warm supporter base of tens of thousands of people who not only use the hospital, but have given to the hospital? It's the warmest possible pipeline. Think what you could do with that as well. So what you can often do in depending on the locations and the type of hospital will vary, and I don't want to overcommit, but the scale is big potentially if you commit to it. It's about what you can afford and what the circumstances are. But just to illustrate, a couple of those sites that I was hospitals I was talking about, we were generating 200-300 lottery tickets week in, week out. Not always 300, but consistently above 200, 10,000 tickets a year. is absolutely achievable in a big multi-site hospital. That doesn't mean that's guaranteed or anything like that. And the equivalent for regular giving would probably be in excess of 5,000 a year as well. That's to give you an idea of the scale of what you can do. And if you do that for several years, it will build up, the income will be there. So why don't people do it? Well, it's not what hospital charities have traditionally done. And they may have heard about hospices and they think it's about having a lottery. And we'll probably talk about that in a moment. It's really about face-to-face, but it's the risk factors. You have to be worried about, will this work? Will we get good retention? Will we get that return on investment? And the second thing that's really important is, do we want the risk of people talking about to the public, many of whom might be vulnerable, about our charity? Will they represent us the way they want? And those are the two risks. And the solution to that is you choose the right agency, those risks disappear. You choose the wrong agency, they're absolutely there. So what you've got to do is, if you want to do this, there is a big opportunity, but you've got to pick a good agency to represent on your behalf.
Yeah, no, I fully agree, because there's a massive difference between fundraising on site at hospital premises and off site, whether that be door to door or at private sites. Because obviously on site, you've got much more to do with vulnerability as well, haven't you, Nick?
Yeah, it's a very interesting experience to your first few days working in a hospital when you've maybe been used to working inside a supermarket. And it's almost overwhelming sensory experience when you first go in there, because there's so much going on that doesn't happen in your typical Morrison's or M&S or whatever. So there's lots of people walking around. And, you know, I remember the first time I saw someone in a hospital gown being led through the hospital in handcuffs by the police. It's like, whoa, that's quite shocking. And people have faint in front of you and all sorts of things happen. So that's the first thing is, you know, you have to adapt to that. But of course, lots of people walk past are people who've got a connection to the hospital, and that's great. It's a very warm audience. But a lot of them are also vulnerable. A lot of them are also on medication. Many of them have just had some terrible news or about to hear some, or are worried they're about to hear some. So there's lots of people with emotional anxiety. There's lots of people with ailments and conditions and ongoing vulnerability issues. And then there's the people that are on medication or just had some really bad news. So it's a hyper vulnerable kind of environment. Now, that is not a problem for sensitive fundraisers. They're very well equipped to do this. They have a conversation, they're able to detect it. It's what they do. But you have to be really good at that. You can't be second rate or okay. You've got to be dialed into it. You've got to be hyper aware of it. But you do it through conversation and listening to people and observing and building up that experience and that judgment. And one of the things that really helps is if you use people that are already sensitive, empathetic people and have life experience. There's no substitute for life experience. I don't think you know, with a few exceptions, I wouldn't want to put in someone in their early 20s into that environment and that set of challenges. No. I don't think they would be equipped to do it in general. A few would, but most wouldn't. But someone in their 50s or their 60s, or maybe their late 40s, that's used hospitals themselves, has been through lots of these things, has experienced them, that you can't beat that life experience. And then the mindset that comes with it. And then, of course, we do lots of training around it in addition.
You mentioned there about the training. So I've this is a leading question because I know really what the answer is, but I think it'd be really interesting for everyone else to hear. I've come from the hospice background, working at Sue Ryder, and working with you from the charity side. Now I've moved across to work for you guys. I've sat there and I've really gone into depth about all of the code of conduct that you have with regards to fundraising. But I also saw that you've got a specific hospital code of conduct. This is well above and beyond what's required for general face-to-face fundraising. Do you want to just tell me about that hospital code of conduct and what level of detail you've gone into to educate and train the fundraisers?
Yeah, so because I am passionate about this.
Passionate's an understatement.
About hospitals and about the opportunity they are for fundraisers. That's why I'll go so far on making sure the training is really good, and all of our team go all the way there to make sure, because we believe our fundraisers should be properly supported. But I should also say it's one of the reasons I get angry about poor practice. So one of the reasons I'm passionate about insisting on the best standards for hospitals, charities, is that's what they deserve and that's what they should have. And it makes me angry to think that there are people representing good causes, including hospital charities, in a shoddy way. It makes me angry, right? It's just not right. I'd abolish them all if I could, right? But that has to translate into practical things. And that's why we have a specific code of practice that is about working in hospitals, that talks about the environmental aspects, the physical environment of the hospital. It's simple things like you've got to realize you're in a hospital and it's not a supermarket where people are buying their groceries. It's a place where people are being rushed to an operation. It's a place where people are disorientated. It's a place where people have had bad news. And you've got to do that. And it's simple things like you can't block fire exits. You've got to keep the thoroughfares clear because it literally could affect whether someone who's had a stroke gets to the stroke unit a bit quicker and more of their brain is retained. It's literally life and death that you observe that sort of thing, that you have that observation of people who are doing their job and you're not getting in the way. You've got to fit into that environment and be a part of the hospital community. And that's also things like, if you're there, this I used to see all the time. You'd see people visitors would walk a certain distance into the hospital and then they'd stop because they'd lost confidence that they were going in the right direction. You used to say you could literally put a cross. That's the point where everybody starts to wonder whether they're going the right way. So one of the things you do a lot of is actually wayfinding, is directing people, just saying, and so you learn where all the units are. You learn, oh yeah, it's past that green door, because you know that everybody, that's what they notice when they walk past, and that's not on the map they've got, or it's not in the instructions they've got been given by somebody who already knows their way around the hospital. So part of the skill is you learn that environment so that you understand the environment you're working in, but you also can help patients find their way around. And you come across as someone who's within the hospital, not this transplanted, beamed down alien force from outside. Then you also, one of the things I love about working in hospitals is trying to work out the color coding of the uniforms. And I'd always assumed that every hospital had the same, but no, that would be too simple. So one of the things to do early on, a bit like, as if it was Panini stickers or whatever, is what's the purple gown? Oh, right, what's that gown? And that's one of the reasons really, to just learn about how hospitals run, what these different wards, that are these Latin sort of names are, what that actually is. And that's another reason it's very enjoyable. You learn a lot about, to use a phrase of one of my colleagues, you get under the hood of how a hospital works. And that's a really enjoyable part of it. So the training covers those kinds of things, the heightened vulnerabilities, how to fit in within the environment. It also, of course, talks about the way that you promote the cause and what hospital charities do. That specific thing about the NHS funding and the relationship with that. There's also a bit about saying don't get involved in any discussion about car parking charges. That's one of the things you never do. You do that once, you never do it again, because it never ends. But you also, one of the other things that you find out quickly is people always trying to find the pay points for the car park. So that's another thing that you learn. Where are the toilets? Where are the lifts? And where are the pay points? And where can you get a coffee and stuff like that? And so the code of practice really distills, I suppose, the learning I have and the passion I have down into a code, which I then take great pleasure in, sharing with the people that are going to work there, but also for the hospital. They know, wow, you really get this. You're really immersed in it, and you've got a real passion for making sure people are really prepared and do everything right.
Look, Nick, thanks so much for your time. I think your passion for working in hospitals is 100% shines through. I don't think that there will be anybody out there who's got more experience in working for hospital charities from a face-to-face fundraising point of view as you. I think that you would be right up there on that top level. So if anyone listening to this does want to get in contact with us, feel free to contact us here at the Fundraising Partnership. Thanks very much for your time, Nick.
Thank you, Ross.
So there you have it. I'm sure you'll agree, extremely insightful conversation that I had with Nick earlier on today. If you are working for a hospital trust, a charity, and you're either looking at increasing the activity that you do around fundraising for your lottery or regular giving, or if you're just thinking about setting up a lottery or starting regular giving, this is something that we'd love to speak to you about. I myself have been there in your shoes. I spent 13 years at Sue Ryder, where I set up the lottery for Sue Ryder and then managed the regular giving campaigns. I've actually got a podcast, the first episode that we ever did, about setting up a lottery and some things to think about. So check episode number 1 out of our podcast series. But if you are looking at setting something up or you'd like to speak to us more, please visit our website at thefundraisingpartnership.co.uk. You can find our contact details on there. You can click on Meet the Team, find my personal contact details. You can speak to me. We can have a really informal chat around what you're looking to do, the ups, the downs, the pitfalls, the challenges, but also we can talk about the massive potential that we see in the hospital fundraising sector. Those key charity groups, those key supporters, those amazing venues where we can have face-to-face fundraisers who are out there representing your charity, who are enhancing the brand, who are telling people about the work and the impact that you are having. So if you want to know anything more, you know exactly where to find us. Let's listen to a little bit more of this fantastic pianist.